Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I'm here with my soul sister, Andrea Kay, a great individual in person and someone who speaks clearly, which is quite rare in today's world. She's with Salem in San Diego. I've been on the show a number of times. She's been on mine, and I wanted to bring her in today because you need to hear from her, and she knows what to talk about because right now we're in a period of time where there's viciousness out there, extreme viciousness. Kamala Harris is attacking President Trump as a fascist, a dictator, the equivalent of Hitler. She's bringing out people from the woodwork, I think, trying to get him killed, frankly, because she doesn't think she can win in a valid basis on the election of November 5th. And also, dovetailing it with her position on killing unborn babies. I think the two of them are totally despicable. I think she's an evil person. But I want to get Andrea's view on this because it shouldn't just be Larry Klayman who's taking a hard line. And Andrea's one of the few people out there who will take a hard line based on her beliefs.
Well, Larry, thank you for having me here. I was saying before we started the interview that for me, it feels like a family reunion, when I get together with you. The only thing that's missing is we're not together in person and we don't have a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken with us to share, because that's old school Southern family reunion for me. So look, and we share the same views. That's one of the reasons why we say we're soul sister and soul brother, and you hit the nail on the head. And you know who else did? You know who spoke yesterday with some of the greatest clarity in terms of an overview of what this is really about. It's a battle of good versus evil. And it was actually an archbishop named Vigano yesterday. And I encourage everybody to read it because it just goes to show it's not just me and Larry Klayman saying that this is a battle of good versus evil. And to me, one of the greatest examples of evil is the way that the entire Democrat machine is exploiting the victims of the Holocaust in order to smear Donald Trump and 85 million MAGA supporters as a bunch of Nazis worshiping Adolf Hitler. And I encourage everybody, if you are even slightly thinking that there may be something to this, you don't want to go or watch the Madison Square Garden rally on Sunday, you go watch this video that this Auschwitz survivor put out today showing the tattoo of his number from Auschwitz on his arm and talking about how evil and despicable it is of Kamala Harris to be exploiting him and falsely accusing Trump of being another Adolf Hitler. And what does this have to do with abortion? Well, first of all, you're right. You can't, these coordinated attacks against Trump right now is coming at a time in which multiple assassination attempts haven't worked. And now they're down to about 8 or 9 days. And they're hoping that they're going to, through this, that they're going to incite some crazy person. Because if you're saying that Trump is Hitler and 20,000 Nazis are going to descend to New York, why wouldn't somebody feel compelled to take him out to save the nation? And what does that have to do with abortion? Because look, there's a reason why 100 to 200 million people have died under the quest of communism or under communist regimes. They don't value any kind of life. Everybody is expendable in their quest for power. And it doesn't matter whether it's a former president of the United States or an unborn child in the womb.
Well, that's right. I remember going back to Emory Law School. I was in the constitutional law class with Sally Blackman, who was the daughter of Harry Blackman, who wrote Roe v. Wade. And at that time, it was in the late 70s. So you're talking about a time that was far less polarized than it is today. And the issue was raised, is there a woman's right to an abortion? And I would get up at the time and I say, no, I don't think there is. There's no right to kill a human being. There's no right. And right in front of Sally. But, and she was a nice person. But the fact is that they have no respect for human life. They have none. And they could care less. And they don't care whether Trump is killed or they don't care whether a baby's killed, a few minutes after it's born because of a failed abortion. This is what you're dealing with, pure evil. And of course, now we see Hillary Clinton entering the fray. And the irony, Andrea, and I want to get your view on this, is that she really, I don't think, wants Kamala Harris to win. She doesn't want another woman to become president because she wanted to be president. But she can't resist. She hates President Trump so much that she's out there trashing him, now claiming, as of today, that he's again collaborating with the Russians to fix the election. This is what you're dealing with. And she looks, I mean, Kamala Harris actually believe is more evil than Hillary, but Hillary looks more evil when you look at her. And,
She does. And but you know who's actually even surprisingly even looking worse and more evil than Hillary is Bubba. I don't know who thought putting Bill Clinton out on the campaign trail was a good idea, because it absolutely wasn't. But yeah, she even said today she is just so full of hatred against Trump that she was even saying today, well, let's just hope for Kamala that nobody from the Department of Justice comes out like a James Comey and tries to derail her. It was just so pathetic, so desperate. But, let's also remember, as we talk about this through line of inhumanity on the part of the Democrats and how they don't have any respect for human life, let's remember the butcher of Benghazi, Hillary Clinton. There's multiple 9/11s, and one took place in 2012 in which Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, denied 400 security requests. They did a stand down order after they left Americans to die in Benghazi, some who fought for their lives on rooftops for 13 hours. And then they tried to scapegoat a video. And she and Barack Obama referred to them as bumps in the road. And there's another aspect of murder that's taking place in this country at the hands of the Democrats, intentionally and willfully. And it's the Laken Rileys, it's the Jocelyn Nungareys, it's the Americans that are being raped and murdered and slaughtered all across this country, because that's what communists do. They don't care about life. All they care about is power.
well, that's right. And of course, we remember during the Clinton years when I was fighting them at Judicial Watch, 80 plus people died in and around the Clinton regime. Is that just the law of averages, Andrea? Is that just my mistake? And Harold Ickes, who was Deputy White House Chief of Staff and also tied in with the restaurant workers in New York, the union, who was allegedly tied to mafia interests. I once asked him, I said, Harold, do you ever ask for any favors? And he jumped over the table at me at the time. It's actually on video.
Mm.
It's all over TV. So they have no respect for that. And getting back to the initial point about this Holocaust survivor coming forward to talk about reality here, not just the attacks that are going towards President Trump. This is a guy whose daughter is Jewish, okay, who converted to Judaism with Jared Kushner, someone who negotiated the Abraham Accords to make peace in the Middle East, who was the biggest friend that Israel ever had. And he also happens to be the biggest friend that Saudi Arabia ever had and the Gulf states, because they actually, in their heart, want Israel to get rid of Hamas. They want them to get rid of the Islamic Jihad. They want Israel to get rid of Iran. They're Sunnis, and the Shiites want to lop their heads off, frankly, and acquire the oil in Mecca, and also, control what's going on generally throughout the Middle East. So, to call this guy an anti-Semite, to equate him with Hitler, he's the actual opposite of that.
Mm.
But maybe the president made a few jokes in the past, about generals or whatever, and that's not terribly serious. The fact is, he had people working around him, in my opinion, that were disloyal to him, that stabbed him in the back, and the president is the commander in chief, and if he gives an order, it has to be carried out, and that's just the way it is. He's not a dictator. He's actually very pro-Israeli, and he's pro-Arab as well, because it's in their
Yeah,
best interest to get.
excuse me for jumping in, Larry, but it's just almost, I'm not a comma MD, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it just, it's clear that everything that the Democrats are accusing Trump of is what their play is. They're the anti-Semites, right? They're the dictators. They're the ones that have weaponized the government. They're the ones that have literally talked, Hillary Clinton literally talked about the need for concentration camps to try to deprogram MAGA. And if you look, what kind of psychosis must you have as an American if you're believing any of that, when we have, for the first time in my lifetime, and I'm not a historian, but I think it's the first time in history where we have two people who have both been in office and we can see their actions. And every woman who's ever dated one of you men knows, Larry, you can't listen to a dude's words, you got to listen to his actions, right? If Trump was going to destroy democracy, he would have done it. If he was going to do everything they're saying he would have done, he would have, he had an opportunity to do it and he didn't. And if she was going to solve the problems and secure the border and do this and that, She's had the last 4 years to do it. Their records stand on their own. And it's
Right.
astounding to me that there's any American that buys in any of the propaganda.
Well, and that's exactly what's going on. People are recognizing that. More and more Americans are recognizing it, why it's breaking for Trump right now. I don't tell people who to vote for because I run a public interest group. They can figure it out, obviously.
Yeah.
But the reality here is that what she's doing right now and what the Democrats are doing, and Bill Maher, her sycophants in Hollywood, people like that, are pushing people to Trump because they're disgusted at this.
Mhm.
And they're saying, why are we talking about this when we can't afford food, we can't afford gas? We have people running across the border, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, human traffickers, fentanyl killing our kids. Why are they only talking about this? It's desperation,
Mhm.
and they're sinking faster than a rock. But of course, there is the prospect over the horizon for another fraudulent election. And don't put it past the Democrats. They control the major cities. It's easy for them to do it. And we must, of course, be vigilant in that regard.
Yeah, in fact, there's news today that broke. Well, first of all, we know that Glenn Youngkin has been trying to get the non-citizens purged from his voter rolls. And a judge actually came back and said, you need to put those non-citizens back on the voter rolls. And he says, I'm going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. We had a hearing today that took place in Pennsylvania and Lancaster, in which they identified a ballot harvesting scheme of 2,500 ballots that they found, 60% of which were fraudulent, everything from bad signatures. They could see that it was a lot of the same signatures on multiple ballots. Just some of the identity information was correct, but the voter said that they hadn't filled out that information. So, and that's one of many stories that's taking place across the country of ballot harvesting done illegally, fraudulent votes illegally. Then on top of it, Larry, I'm sure that you've been on top of the story of which the Democrat scheme is to use overseas votes of people that have never even lived here, but maybe they're a dual citizen because a parent was an American, and they just get to register, pick the swing state, register to vote, saying that at some point, they might, if they move back to the States, they might live in Georgia, and they're looking to hopefully get upwards of 9 million votes that way. So, I don't want to black pill anybody. I want everybody to get out to vote. We have enough people who share our views, our values, and our ideology to landslide this, but we've got too many conservatives, particularly Christians, that are staying at home. We must overwhelm and swamp the steal.
That's right. And as I said, people are starting to see through this as to what's going on. And we have to be vigilant. We talked about this on your show last week. I was on your show, and not just up to the election as to what happens, but also after the election. Because if President Trump wins, the left is going to be in the streets. They're going
Yes.
to be armed. They're going to be coming for you and your loved ones. They will know no bounds, and it's going to be a very, very dangerous situation. I pray that it does not devolve into a civil war, but I believe that it will at the time.
Mhm.
And we need to protect ourselves with our Second Amendment rights. So I think people, frankly, should arm up right now, not to use it offensively, but defensively, protect your family. It's very, very serious. Even in places like California, which are
Mhm.
leftist, it's going to be very dangerous, where you're among leftists. So sometimes when I'm in California and walking through the streets of Beverly Hills, for instance, and wearing my American flag pin, people will say to me, "Oh, you must be a Trump supporter. You have a flag pin. This is terrible." And sometimes I wear my Trump jacket that I got at the inauguration many years ago, and people say, "Oh, you're one of them." This is where we are right now, and it's a real risk to people of faith, to people who
Mhm.
believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers, and those who just simply don't want to be pushed around, who don't want to be bullied. But that's where we're headed. And if Trump loses, it's going to be the same thing from the other side. So
Mhm.
this is a crucial moment where American people need to be prepared. And I know you agree with this,
Mhm.
that we just can't let the Republicans do it. People
No.
in my own family say, "Oh, Larry, go have fun, go play golf, whatever." Let the Republicans do it. You can't. You can't do
Mm-mm.
that. And because they've never done it before. And in fact, you can see right now There are hundreds of them, the rhinos, trying to stab President Trump in the back as we speak.
As well as the fact that they're already have the playbook out of how they can hamstring him if he does go into office. I'm incredibly concerned about Kevin McCarthy trying to make his way in as chief of staff. One of the things that I said about President Trump, if he was going to run again, that he must recognize, he doesn't have to say it publicly, that he made a lot of mistakes when it came to personnel, but he needed to understand that he did. And I don't like even any conversations of Kevin McCarthy getting anywhere near him. He needed to be putting a machine in place of all outsiders to go into DC and overwhelm the swamp. I don't want any more of this Reince Priebus rhino garbage going on, involving his White House and his chief of staff. One of the biggest mistakes that he made was having Ivanka and Jared. Jared was great with the Abraham Accords. He could have helped him with that without having them be so much, a part of the administration, because they're not, traditional conservatives. He needs to surround himself with those who have MAGA in their blood, and not those who've been bumping up against all of the uniparty people inside the Beltway. And I'm particularly concerned about chief of staff, AG, head of FBI, and really all of the different departments.
No, you're right. A couple that I think would be good, even though I didn't like him in the beginning. Marco Rubio, I think, would be a good Secretary of State. I think he would do well there. Tulsi Gabbard, perhaps Secretary of Defense, if she gets a little bit more hawkish. She's a little bit weak on that. And I like Robert F. Kennedy as head of Health and Human Services, frankly. Take it apart. So there's some good ones out there. But yes, he's been stabbed in the back before. The ones who haven't stabbed him in the back have death sentences on their head, from Iran, like Mike Pompeo and others who actually stuck their neck out. And those are the kinds of people that need to be brought back in. And he needs to do something about our intelligence services, because they are pure evil. And you saw what he did when he was president, leaking information, spying on him, etc. So I hope he's learned his lesson in that regard, because yes, even if he survives physically, and we pray that he will, is that they will do everything they can to block any initiative that he will start. And although he's not a dictator, I've heard many people say, I hope he is a dictator, because at some point, he's going to have to declare martial law, because I think these people are going to come after him and come after us. And he's going to have to establish some kind of law and order in this country, essentially.
I think he needs to go in scorched earth. I think that part of the issue last time was not just him being surrounded with a bunch of uniparty rhinos, but they got to him under the guise of, oh, we gotta think about re-election, and that's always the rhino excuse to go squishy. He didn't have to think about any of that this time. He needs to go in scorched earth. He needs to pink slip entire departments, get rid of Department of Education, get rid of the EPA, get rid of the FBI needs to be dismantled. So does most of the IC communities. I mean, when was the last time they solved any kind of terrorist attack in advance? Their function is entirely right now to be weaponized against the American people in order to control the outcome of the elections. There's no purpose. What is the FBI doing for us from a law enforcement standpoint, except coordinating, bringing in terrorists across the border? They didn't even, they supposedly caught this guy who was here to, assassinate Trump. Well, he didn't have to be let into the country. Why'd they let him in and let him roam around? So we never needed Department of Homeland Security in the first place. That was a mistake from George W. Bush. We need to be privatizing TSA. We need to be going scorched earth to downsize so much of the federal government. I think we need to get rid of the FDA and the CDC. Yeah. What's the purpose? All they're doing is partner with Big Pharma to keep us sick for money.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, unless there's a landslide in the Senate and the House, it's going to be very difficult. But what needs to be done with executive orders is to shut them down, essentially. Yeah. And, if Biden and Obama and the rest of them can use executive orders, then conservatives can use them too, and let them sort it out in the courts at the time. But there is no law and order anymore. There's no legal system under. We've talked about that. These judges at the federal level are compromised and corrupt on both sides. And the American people need to take matters into their own peaceful and legal hands. That's why, we had that Third Continental Congress a few years ago, which we need to crank up again.
Yep.
But the American people need to declare independence from their own government because
Yes.
we are persecuted by them, and Trump as well. I mean, the enemy within. He's absolutely right. There is an enemy within that wants him gone. There's also an enemy in Hollywood, and I brought this case for Laura Loomer. We talked about that. I know you have to go soon, but Laura Loomer was used as the whipping girl, so to speak, to get to Trump. With Bill Maher, and I've been on Bill Maher many times, he's gone really south in the last 20 years or so. He used to
You mean
be.
he was good at one point? Okay, I'll take your word on
No,
that.
he was never good, but he wasn't as bad as he is now. Okay. I mean, in fact, he was once railing against people who believed in pro-life, and I made a comment when I was on because they would always tell the conservatives, don't make any jokes. You have to take it. You have to be a punching bag. And I said, Bill, I think you were the product of a failed abortion. He kept me off for a year, but now he's gone crazy. He's
Yeah,
absolutely gone crazy, and he accused Laura Loomer of having sex and having an adulterous affair with
disgusting.
Trump. Disgusting. That's libel per se, and you don't even have to prove damages. It's presumed he's in big trouble, and so is HBO. And who's the law firm that represents them? I've been against them many times. Davis Wright Tremaine, Trump haters,
Hmm.
individuals who then, after I filed the lawsuit, or before I filed it, when I said, all we want is an apology, and we want to put her on your show so she can explain. Arrogantly, they said, no, we're not doing that. And then they threatened her in a letter,
Mm.
Kate Bolger of Davis Wright Tremaine. And, this is what we're up against today in the legal community. And well,
But it's so important that you filed this lawsuit. Hat tip to you and Laura Loomer. I call her Loomer. Who doesn't call her Loomer? So much respect for her. She is one of the last true independent journalists that we have in this country. And she's so courageous. She's so fearless. So, of course, she's got a target on her back by the left to try to destroy her. If you Google her name, it's nothing but smears. And, I think it's high time. They want to use lawfare against us as MAGA, whether, and it's not even just against Trump. So I say let's take let's hit them where it hurts through the courts and through their pocketbooks. I hope you bankrupt Bill Maher. I hope you make him miserable. We know HBO has big bucks, but you know what? It still takes money right now for them to have to defend themselves in this case, and hopefully it's also going to lose them some eyeballs as well as therefore some advertising dollars.
And we're up against very big forces here. I took this case with my law firm in a private capacity, and if people want to donate for the cost, it's going to be very expensive going up against this big law firm and others. They can go to larryclayman.com, larryclayman.com. The other stuff I do is mostly for Freedom Watch. This was more of a private matter. But clearly, lawyers in this country are under attack as well. The bar
Mm-hmm.
associations in New York and DC are trying to eliminate conservative and Republican activist lawyers. I've been fighting the DC bar for 14 years. I've sued them 14 times, as a matter of fact, and that was too few. But they just disbarred Giuliani. They're going after Senator Josh Hawley. They're going after Senator Ted Cruz. They're going after Kellyanne Conway.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, John Eastman, the law professor that represented Trump, Jeffrey Clark, a Justice Department official. It's a full court press to use the legal system against conservatives, people of faith, and those who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers. And it's attack on every front. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we can't always stay within the legal system. I think we're going to get a good judge here. We got a female judge, and it's in a very conservative circuit in Florida where Laura ran for Congress. It's the Bible Belt. So I hope we get a good showing there. Florida
Well,
courts are generally
and you
pretty
have to
good.
think about whether or not you get a good judge, because we have so many dictators in these black robes that don't just follow the law. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. And meanwhile, yeah, while they're persecuting all these good attorneys, Liz Cheney, violated ethics, if not the law, and going to Cassie Hutchinson outside of her counsel and suborning perjury, in my opinion. So Liz Cheney, in addition to being shamed and rejected by her voters and the Republican Party, should be rejected and disbarred by
No,
DC.
she's despicable. I think she's kind of angry with her existence because unfortunately she looks like her dad in a skirt.
Yeah, if I looked like Liz Cheney, I'd probably hate myself too.
Yeah, right. So we always have a good time laughing anyway. We got to laugh or otherwise we cry.
This is true,
And
Larry. This is
someday I've been threatening to do this for years. I want to do stand-up comedy at the Comedy Club in LA or in Washington, D.C. or some other place. Perhaps you'll come. I'll at least need one
course.
person that laughs. Okay.
Of
So
course. And we have some comedy clubs down here in San Diego. So make it easy on me because I'm not sure for you, I would drive to
okay,
LA.
I'll come see you, I promise.
Yes.
Soon.
All
And
right, my dear.
San
Thank
Diego's
you
a
for
great city. You're fantastic, Andrea. Thank you for coming
having
on.
me.
You're my very good friend.
All right. We'll
Have
talk
a great
soon.
weekend.
Thank you,
God
honey. Bye-bye.